So the first thing I have to do is wedge the clay. This can take out a lot of good frustration. This is porcelain, and I'm going to fire at mid-fire, which means about 2300 degrees, and at that point it's vitrified. And it's called a spiral wedge. Why did I pick pottery? Because bags are 25 or 50 pounds, and you have to wedge it, and then throwing is very physical. So, and it's dirty. You have to get your hands dirty. But it's just something about having my hands in the mud and creating something out of mud. So when I think I've got it, all those molecules going the way they need to go, and I can get ready to cut some off and throw. I'm going to throw just a mug today, or the beginnings of a mug. I've got the handle. Cut off a couple of pieces in case the first time doesn't work. Okay. My first introduction to clay was when I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee, back in the late 70s. I had an opportunity to study with a master potter by the name of Charles Counts. For 6 weeks we built our own kick wheel and threw outside and 8-10 hours a day. We could even sleep up there and just get totally immersed in the process, and we learned how to throw and fire. Very methodical teacher, which was great for me. And so that was my introduction, and then life took over and had babies and had to take a job, get a job, and worked in nonprofits for most of my adult life. And it wasn't until about 14 years ago that I moved to San Antonio and got an opportunity to study. It wasn't until about 14 or 15 years ago that I had the opportunity to study at the Southwest School of Art in San Antonio with some really fine artists. And I studied there for 6 years and then moved out here. Studied a little bit at Sol Ross as well, and set up my own studio. And things have just kind of unfolded since then. I had no idea where this was going to take me. So the first thing you do is center the clay, and people say, what does that mean? Well, you know it when you feel it. It just is completely, it doesn't move under your hand. And then you drop a hole in the center, and then you start what you call pulling, throwing. I don't know where the word throwing came from. You do throw the clay on the wheel when you start, so maybe that has something to do with it. It's just a matter of pulling that clay up until you get it thin, and you almost always start with pulling straight up. I knew it. Okay, we're going to have to start over. Takes a lot of strength to center a bigger piece of clay. This is about 1.25 pounds. So when I'm pretty sure I've got it nice and centered, then I need to find the center again and set the hole. Make sure it didn't go down too far. And then I'm ready to set the bottom. I like to keep it in sort of a igloo or a honeycomb shape. Clay tends to want to go out. You want to keep it in. You want a cylinder that comes in and not splays out like that. So. I'll throw this pretty much exactly the way I want it to be before I put a handle on it, but sometimes go back and trim when it gets what we call leather hard. But you want to get the basic overall shape and look while you're throwing it on the wheel the first time. So I'm going to call that pretty much pulled up the way I would want it to be. It's kind of a wide cup. Sometimes when the clay is a little wet, it tends to want to splay out just a little bit more. And I'm just going to refine it and it'll be done. I like to have a nice smooth surface and no rings showing on the outside because it's part of what I do is to carve, which is the other reason why I use porcelain, because it doesn't have any grog, what we call grog or sand in it. It's very smooth clay. It's like, I don't know, it makes it harder to throw because it doesn't have any what we call tooth to it. It has just kind of not real strong when you're throwing it. So I'll trim that on the bottom and set the rim, which is very important to me when you're drinking out of it. I always try to refine the rim. Get the water out of the bottom. Trim off some of this excess. We are ready to let that, cut it off the wheel and let that set up a little bit so that I can maybe trim it a little and then put the handle on it. Okay, so these cups have already got a slip put on them, which is what I'm going to put on this mug. I carved through this to the white clay underneath, and that's how I decorate my black and white mugs. I'll show you a sample of what they look like as soon as I finish putting this coat on. I'll have to let this dry for a minute and then put another coat on. I have coats of the black slip already on these, and this is what you call greenware, dry greenware stage. These are wet clay or leather hard, and once that slip dries, I will carve with my carving tool, which I'll show you in a minute, and then let that dry, and then this is ready to be put into the bisque fire to be bisqued. After it comes out of the bisque fire, I put a clear glaze over it and fire it again. Higher, much higher temperature. One of the fun things about doing pottery is all the tools and equipment you need to do it. One of which is a heat gun. I sometimes use a torch as well, but if your clay's not quite as dry as you need it to be when you're going to carve or before you trim the cup, you can always hit it with the blowtorch or the heat gun. Have lots of fun stuff like this, mixers and sprayers, and not to mention all the tools that I use, which is really, really fun. Can never have too many tools. On this banding wheel I have markers. I like to do everything in threes. Pull up in threes on my clay. I like to decorate in threes a lot. And with a pencil, I just mark this in 3 places. And that's basically the only guidelines I give myself. I never repeat myself. I do sort of the same plants all the time, but I try to mix it up. And since I'm doing this freehand, I'm going to divide this into 3 sections, and they're all going to be kind of framed. And then in the middle of them, I'm going to draw a cactus of some sort. Some kind of desert plant, I don't know what yet. I think I'm going to do a yucca plant first. And I may put a little guideline where I want the yucca to be. And with this one, it's just a matter of making those multiple skinny little, whatever you call them, prongs, leaves. And just try to do it until it looks the way I want it to. And I'll do another one over here. So I have these 3 yuccas, and here's going to be the stalk. Getting the fine detail and nuance of a yucca, of a century plant, is really difficult, and the way the leaves or the way the branches grow in an ocotillo is really challenging. Put a little ground here, maybe a few little rocks on the ground here, and I think we need some mountains behind this. So put some mountains through these leaves. You've pretty much got your scene. Sometimes I put the sky in, sometimes I like to just do stars. So I'll do stars on this one. I think I'm going to do a sotol in this panel. Just have to think sotol. Get those leaves going and curling around. Let's do this. And I'm really going to need this other tool. You see all my tools? They're so much fun. I bet you that's it. Nope. There it is. And I'm doing the Soto flowers. This one's blooming. It'd be kind of boring if it weren't. I think sometimes the less detail the better. Just let the essence of the plant kind of show through. And all our little scraggly mountains out here depicted in the background. And for this one I think I'll do clouds. I love clouds too, and I'm always experimenting with different kinds of clouds. Let's do an ocotillo. Now that I've found this, let's start with, looks very haphazard at first, and then you start seeing it emerge. I love ocotillos. And this one's blooming, which is my favorite plant when it's blooming. I can't wait till it starts raining. That's an awfully soft looking ocotillo, so I go back and I put spines on it. Keep this one pretty deserty, except I'm going to do it. It's going to be on the side of a hill. And lots of rocks. And when it's dry, I'll clean it up and fire it. What I love about pottery is that you never make the same thing twice, and it's just endless possibilities. You can give 20 people the same clay, tell them to make a mug, and no two will be at all alike. These will all go in this kiln, and I will fire them to what we call 06. It's like a bisque. It's still kind of absorbent, and then I will fire them again, and then they will be ready for the shelves.